Do you like a good ghost story? Well, you're in luck, or maybe not. In this episode, we've dug up some of the spookiest cemetery hauntings from around the world. So, grab your coffee, tea, or whatever makes you feel safe, it won't help. And settle in while we rattle your bones. And the next time you stroll through a cemetery, don't forget to glance over your shoulder. You never know who, or what, might be following you. Greyfriars Churchyard, Edinburgh, Scotland. Greyfriars Churchyard is known not only for its rich history but also for being one of the most haunted cemeteries in the world. Located in Edinburgh's Old Town, it is the final resting place for thousands of people, including some of Scotland's most notorious figures. However, it is the Mackenzie poltergeist that has cemented Greyfriars' reputation as a place of terror. The haunting centers around George Mackenzie, a 17th-century Scottish lawyer who was responsible for the persecution of the Covenanters, a group of religious dissidents. Mackenzie earned the nickname Bloody Mackenzie for his brutal treatment of prisoners, many of whom were held in terrible conditions in a section of the cemetery known as the Covenanters' Prison. Mackenzie's tomb is located in the graveyard, and ever since a homeless man reportedly broke into his mausoleum in the 1990s, disturbing his final resting place, reports of violent paranormal activity have skyrocketed. Visitors often claim to experience sudden, inexplicable cold spots, being pushed or scratched by unseen forces, and even fainting near Mackenzie's tomb. Some leave the graveyard with bruises or cuts that seem to appear out of nowhere. The intensity of the poltergeist activity became so alarming that a portion of the graveyard had to be closed off to the public for a time. Despite this, ghost tours still visit Greyfriars regularly, and many who venture near Mackenzie's mausoleum leave convinced that they have encountered something truly malevolent. The Stull Cemetery Haunting, Kansas, USA. Stull Cemetery, located in a small, unassuming town in Kansas, has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted places in the United States. According to local legend, the cemetery is a portal to hell, a place where evil entities emerge, and some claim it is one of the 7 gateways to the underworld. The legend of Stull Cemetery began with the mysterious death of 2 men, one in the early 1900s, who was found hanging from a tree near the graveyard, and another in the 1970s, who burned to death under strange circumstances. These deaths added fuel to the fire of the growing rumors about the cemetery's dark powers. It is said that strange, unexplained events occur frequently in the area. People report hearing phantom footsteps crunching over the gravel, even when no one else is around. Others claim to have seen shadowy figures moving between the headstones, vanishing before they can be fully observed. One of the most terrifying aspects of Stull Cemetery is the reports of time loss. Several people who have ventured there claim that time seems to stop while they're inside the cemetery gates. Watches stop working, and visitors lose hours, only to regain consciousness outside the gates with no memory of how they got there. Perhaps the most unnerving part of the legend is that Satan himself is said to visit the cemetery twice a year, once on Halloween and again on the spring equinox. He reportedly comes to meet with his followers, using the cemetery's dilapidated church as his gathering point. Many thrill-seekers have attempted to camp out in the cemetery on these nights, but the overwhelming sense of dread and terror forces most to leave before midnight. Some have even reported hearing growling noises or being physically pushed out of the area by an unseen force. Although no one has definitively proven the supernatural events at Stull Cemetery, the location's eerie atmosphere and strange occurrences continue to make it a hotbed of paranormal interest. The Highgate Cemetery Vampire, London, England. Highgate Cemetery in North London is one of the most famous graveyards in the world, not just for its historic significance but for the chilling stories that surround it. In the 1960s and 70s, Highgate became the focal point of a bizarre series of paranormal sightings, including the infamous Highgate Vampire. The story began in 1969 when several people reported seeing a tall, dark figure with a long black coat and glowing red eyes in the cemetery. Witnesses claimed the figure moved through the cemetery with inhuman speed and would disappear into the shadows before anyone could get a clear look. As more reports came in, rumors began to spread that the figure was a vampire, lurking among the tombs and feeding on the energy of the living. In 1970, a local man named David Farrant, who had a keen interest in the paranormal, began investigating the sightings. He camped out in the cemetery one night and claimed to have encountered the figure himself. According to Farrant, the air around him suddenly grew cold, and he saw a dark silhouette moving silently among the graves. He described the figure as having an intense, evil presence, and it vanished just as quickly as it had appeared. The story of the Highgate vampire grew when another man, Sean Manchester, claimed that the figure was, in fact, an ancient vampire that had been buried in a vault in the cemetery centuries earlier. Manchester even declared that he had plans to hunt down the vampire and destroy it by driving a stake through its heart. This led to a bizarre public feud between Farrant and Manchester, with both men claiming to be the true investigator of the vampire's origins. While the vampire was never found, the haunting legend of the Highgate Cemetery vampire has persisted. Highgate Cemetery remains a place of mystery and intrigue, with visitors still reporting strange sightings, cold spots, and feelings of dread while walking among the overgrown tombstones. Bonaventure Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia, is often considered one of the most haunted cities in America, and Bonaventure Cemetery is one of its most eerie and beautiful locations. The sprawling graveyard is filled with moss-covered trees, elaborate statues, and intricate headstones. But beneath its serene appearance lies a history of ghostly encounters. One of the most famous spirits haunting Bonaventure Cemetery is the ghost of little Gracie Watson. Gracie was the beloved daughter of a prominent hotel manager, and she tragically died of pneumonia in 1889 at just 6 years old. Her parents were devastated by the loss, and a life-sized statue of Gracie was erected in her honor at the cemetery. Visitors to Bonaventure often leave toys and trinkets at her gravesite, believing that Gracie's spirit still lingers there. People have reported hearing the laughter of a little girl near her statue, and some claim to have seen the statue weeping or moving its eyes. A few visitors even report seeing the ghost of a little girl in a white dress running through the cemetery before disappearing into thin air. Beyond Gracie's ghost, many visitors describe a general feeling of being watched or followed in the cemetery, as if unseen presences are wandering the grounds alongside them. The old southern charm of the cemetery belies its reputation as one of the most haunted spots in Savannah. Resurrection Mary, Chicago, USA. One of the most famous ghost stories in Chicago revolves around a young woman known as Resurrection Mary, who haunts the roadways near Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois. The legend of Resurrection Mary dates back to the 1930s, when a young woman in her early 20s reportedly died in a car accident after leaving a dance hall one winter evening. Since then, dozens of motorists have claimed to pick up a mysterious hitchhiker, a beautiful young woman in a white dress with long blonde hair. She is said to ask for a ride to Resurrection Cemetery, a large graveyard in the area. The encounters typically follow a similar pattern. Drivers will see a young woman walking along Archer Avenue late at night. She is always described as pale and cold to the touch, with a distant, almost sorrowful expression. After asking for a ride, she will direct the driver toward Resurrection Cemetery. When they reach the cemetery gates, she disappears, often leaving behind only a lingering chill. One of the most famous sightings occurred in the 1970s when a man named Jerry Paulus met a young woman at a local dance hall. She introduced herself as Mary and danced with him all evening. Jerry was smitten with her, and at the end of the night, he offered to drive her home. She directed him toward Resurrection Cemetery but vanished from his car when they passed the gates. Confused and shaken, Jerry later visited the cemetery and found her gravestone, marked with the name Mary, confirming his eerie encounter. In 1976, another witness driving by the cemetery reported seeing a woman pounding on the iron gates, screaming to be let out. When police arrived, they found no one there, but they did find burn marks on the gate bars, as if someone or something had been there. To this day, Resurrection Mary is considered one of the most credible ghost stories in America, with dozens of sightings reported over the decades. Locals believe that Mary continues to roam the area near Resurrection Cemetery, forever seeking a ride back to the place where she met her tragic end. Howard Street Cemetery, Salem, Massachusetts. Salem, Massachusetts, is infamous for the witch trials of 1692, and many of its graveyards are said to be haunted by the victims of that dark period in American history. One of the most haunted places in Salem is Howard Street Cemetery, where one of the most tragic figures from the witch trials is said to still roam, Giles Corey. Giles Corey was an elderly farmer who was accused of witchcraft during the trials. Refusing to plead guilty or innocent to the charges, he was subjected to a brutal form of torture known as pressing. Large stones were placed on his chest in an attempt to force a confession, but Giles steadfastly refused, only saying, "More weight." He eventually died from the crushing weight of the stones, becoming one of the most harrowing figures of the trials. Before his death, Corey is said to have cursed Salem, and many locals believe that his spirit haunts Howard Street Cemetery, the place where he died. Over the centuries, reports have surfaced of strange, cold winds blowing through the graveyard on otherwise calm days, and some claim to see the ghostly figure of Corey wandering among the tombstones. The most chilling aspect of the legend is that Corey's ghost is said to appear before times of great tragedy in Salem. Witnesses reported seeing his specter in 1914, shortly before a massive fire ravaged the city, and again in 1992, around the time of the 300th anniversary of the witch trials. His presence is viewed as an omen of doom, and those who claim to have seen him describe a heavy, oppressive atmosphere in the cemetery, as if his spirit is still weighed down by the injustice he suffered. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Midlothian, Illinois. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, located in a small, desolate area of the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve near Chicago, is considered one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States. Dating back to the 1830s, this small graveyard has become infamous for its eerie atmosphere and reports of paranormal activity that have drawn ghost hunters and thrill seekers for decades. The haunted history. Once a peaceful resting place for early settlers, Bachelor's Grove became a site of mystery and tragedy. By the 1960s, the cemetery had fallen into disrepair, with headstones vandalized and graves desecrated. The isolation of the site, combined with rumors of occult rituals, contributed to its reputation as a paranormal hotspot. But what really captured people's attention were the numerous sightings of ghostly apparitions. Perhaps the most famous of these is the apparition known as the White Lady or the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. She is described as a spectral woman dressed in a white dress, often seen wandering the cemetery, cradling an infant in her arms. Some believe she is the spirit of a mother mourning her lost child, endlessly searching for her grave. In 1991, one of the most famous ghost photographs ever taken was captured at Bachelor's Grove. A paranormal investigator snapped a photo of an empty gravestone, but when the image was developed, the figure of a woman in an old-fashioned dress appeared, sitting on the tombstone. The White Lady had been captured on film, cementing her as one of the cemetery's most well-known spirits. The Phantom House. Another strange phenomenon reported by multiple witnesses is the appearance of a phantom farmhouse. This ghostly house is said to materialize deep within the woods near the cemetery, only to vanish when approached. Described as a white, two-story home with a porch and a light in the window, it seems to move further away as people try to get closer to it. Some speculate that the house is connected to long-forgotten residents of the area, while others believe it may represent an otherworldly portal. The vanishing car. In addition to the ghosts, visitors have also reported seeing a phantom car near the cemetery. Described as an old, black 1940s sedan, it has been seen driving slowly down the road leading to the cemetery, only to disappear suddenly as it nears the entrance. Some believe this car may be connected to the mafia, as the nearby forest preserve was rumored to be a dumping ground for bodies during the Prohibition era. Though no one has been able to confirm the mafia connection, the car remains one of the cemetery's most bizarre ghost sightings. The spirits of the lagoon. Just beyond the cemetery lies a small lagoon, which also has its share of ghostly legends. In the 1870s, it was reportedly used as a dumping ground for victims of the Chicago mob. People visiting the cemetery often claim to see strange blue lights hovering over the water or ghostly figures emerging from the lagoon, as though trying to escape its dark depths. On occasion, witnesses have reported seeing a horse and plow, driven by a phantom farmer, rise from the murky waters of the lagoon before disappearing beneath the surface. This ghostly image is believed to be the spirit of a farmer who drowned in the lagoon after being pulled in by his horse and plow while working nearby. If you've survived these stories with your nerves intact, congratulations, you're braver than most. If you enjoyed the chills and thrills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Or the next knock on your door might not be from a friendly ghost. Go on, subscribe, before something subscribes to you.